Hey guys, so today I want to talk about the Acolyte of Chayula Ascendancy. Now, at the beginning, when they teased it at the live stream, they made a big deal about, oh, Acolyte was very underplayed last league, so we're going to make a special highlight section talking about the changes that we made to the class because we think that it's pretty good. Now, that got people excited, and a lot of people were planning to play Acolyte of Chayula, but they did implement kind of like a pre-league nerf with the Volatile Power stuff, and as a result, it completely changed the tone on the class. But now that I've played Acolyte of Chayula for about a week and a half, I have my thoughts about this class, and I want to share whether I think that Acolyte of Chayula got a buff, or potentially it might have gotten nerfed. So right now, again, I am on my Acolyte 93 right now. I've been playing Hollow Palma this entire time. And I went the route of going the full Chaos conversion because Acolyte pretty much works, I guess, the best when you're able to fully convert to Chaos because you're really able to take advantage of the different nodes. Now, before I hop into my thoughts about the tree currently, I wanted to go and take a look at what Acolyte looked like before the changes, because I think that will give us a lot of understanding and context to why I think about Acolyte in a certain way. So first things first, here is the old tree, right? Mainly the big thing they changed were these two nodes, Ravenous Doubts, Mana Leech recovers based on other types of damage, including physical, and also Consuming Question. You cannot recharge Energy Shield, but Mana Leech also affects Energy Shield recovery. And then they also changed Reality Rending, which used to be a chance to gain extra damage as Chaos. Now, this didn't really change too much Waking Dream, but they did change Lucid Dreaming. Before, it made it so that your effect and the duration of Flames of Shula were doubled. So double effectiveness and double duration, whereas now it's just you get to choose which one you want to do. The ones down here kind of got a little bit changed here. The main one was Grasp the Void. This one disappeared and turned into Void Illusion, the one that you roll and get a little bit of illusion. But honestly, it doesn't really matter too much because what people cared about and what made Chayula strong was mostly in Ravenous Doubts and Consuming Questions, and also the Waking Dream and Lucid Dreaming. Well, sort of. I guess this wasn't very strong and to be honest, most of the stuff on this tree wasn't very strong. And really, the only reason why people played Chayula was for Ravenous Doubts and Consuming Questions. This allow you to, one, leech mana off of any type of damage, right? So you could be using Elemental, you could be using Chaos, you could be using Physical, you could be using whatever damage type, and you could leech mana. And as a result, with Consuming Questions, this also allowed you to leech life, or energy shield, sorry, off of any element, any type of attack, any type of damage. So this was really, really nice. And this also meant that you didn't need to build any life leech either, because as long as you had mana leech, that would also allow you to leech energy shield. And this was really the main reason why people played Acolyte of Chayula. Now, some people played for like poison builds, I think. They used like reality rending. That was another thing. But those poison builds were mostly pretty niche. I mean, I guess Chayula is niche in general to begin with. But I would say, again, most people played it for Consuming Questions and Ravenous Doubts. And I guess, let's just say people played it for reality rending as well for poison. So now that we have some context about why people played Acolyte of Chayula, let's go take a look at the current version of Acolyte of Chayula and what the different nodes do. So, as I mentioned before, the Leech was the main reason why people played Acolyte, and that got turned into Sap of Nightmares. Sap of Nightmares allows you to leech based off of chaos damage as well as physical. So, no longer is it any damage, it's only chaos damage, which means that anybody who is playing the Acolyte of Chayula and wants to use this Leech feature, which was the main draw of Chayula beforehand, either needs to play physical or if they take this node, Chaos, and cannot play Elemental anymore. So in that sense, this is a pretty big nerf because it kind of narrows down the type of attacks and archetypes and styles that you can actually play with this class. And as a result of this, they are expecting people to play more of a chaos-based build, which is why they came in and added Unraveling, which allows your chaos damage to either freeze, inflammability with the ignites, and also shock the enemies. And this is off of a 2-second rotation, and this can overlap. Like, for example, you can see this right here, right? Unraveling Flame, Unraveling Bolt. That's what you get from the node. And you can see that it's been going back and forth on Flame and Bolt the entire time and hasn't hit a single freeze this entire process. And it could also back to back hit the same thing over and over again. Like, it could hit freeze twice, it could hit lightning shock twice, it could hit the ignite twice in a row. It doesn't matter. It is completely random, which, to be honest, makes this a very unreliable node for the ailments, because it would be more ideal and a lot better if you were able to just cycle between ignite, freeze, and shock. That way you're guaranteeing, for the most part, you're getting pretty much every single ailment onto the monster or the boss that you're fighting, whereas now it doesn't do that. And then that has certain implications with things like Combat Frenzy, which requires you to freeze, and different things like that, right? Now, granted, also, I did play Combat Frenzy, and it was, for the most part, fine, but it definitely would have been a lot more consistent if it weren't doing that. So, first things first again, our form of Leech got nerfed, which was the main reason why people play that. Unraveling, which was kind of one of the main things that, incentivized people to play the Chaos form, isn't actually that good. Now, next we have Inner Turmoil, which is another thing that you benefit from. Well, you don't need to play full Chaos to do this, but you kind of connected it with Unraveling to try to make this work. And this was the other thing that people were very excited about going into this update. They're like, this Volatility thing seems really cool. So what does Volatility do, right? Volatility normally explodes after 4 seconds, dealing 100 physical damage to you per Volatility stacks, and for 10 seconds after the explosion, you'll gain Volatile Power, gaining 1% of damage as Chaos for each Volatility when they explode. So this was also very exciting because it allowed you to get quite a bit of damage, potentially, right? But what ended up actually happening was that when you're playing and mapping, because of the fact that every time you get another Volatility stacks, it resets the explosion timer, it ends up being that the only time you're really getting the Volatility stacks explode is when you're not in combat, when you're traveling. So half the time, you explode like 100, 150 Volatility stacks, and all that just goes to waste. So actually, in practice, this is very clunky and doesn't work very well. Now, the Monk makes it so you take no damage from it, which is nice, but again, the actual functionality of it is very limited. Though there was a period of time where people were theory crafting with an old support gem called Volatile Power that you could use this to get a huge amount of burst. Volatile Power basically allowed you to be able to get stacks of Volatility for using ancestrally boosted abilities, which you can do very easily and stack up to 200 very, very quickly using a skill like Ember Fusillade. Now, they got rid of that support gem, and as a result, we lost that ability to easily stack Volatility before we go into a fight to go burst the boss. So at the end of the day, the conclusion for this node is it's just extremely unreliable and most of the time not very useful. So again, you have one node that's not very useful, and you have two nodes that's not very useful that replaced two nodes on the tree again that were pretty much what people played the class for and what made the class actually playable. Of course, it did get swapped down to here, but again, that ability got nerfed. So not only did you get rid of those nodes, you also nerfed that as well. And then you got rid of the other reason why people play this class, which was reality rending to help with poison builds to get extra chaos damage, which meant extra poison magnitude. And you replace it again with some random garbage. Now, to put the icing on the cake with the Into the Breach skill, it's not bad that you get to choose which power you get, right? Flames of Chayula, all of them manifest are purple, red, or blue. And most people pick purple because that is what gives you extra chaos damage. I guess, let's go into the skill real quick, right? In case anybody doesn't know. Into the Breach spawns little flames of Chayula that if you pick them up, they grant you different effects. The flames of Chayula, depending on their color, give you a certain effect. Blue gives you mana leech, red gives you life leech, and then the purple one gives you extra damage as chaos. So you can see right now, I have Flames of Chayula. That's why you can see these little flames and little remnants pop up, right? And you can pick them up. Now, I've been standing here for a little bit, so they've been kind of accumulating. But if you are going and fighting in a map or a boss, to be honest, there are a lot of times where it is pretty sparse and you're not really getting all too many of them. And the thing is, they don't last very long. They only last a couple seconds. I can see they last like 4 or 5 seconds or something like that when I pick it up, right? So the actual effect of the Flames of Chayula don't actually last that long. And as a result, are most of the time pretty like not very reliable, not very good for consistent damage. And also the fact that they're random without the second node makes it a little bit troublesome as well. But regardless, let's say you went and grabbed the second node right here, Lucid Dreaming, and said that you want your choice of power to always be purple. Well, a lot of times when you're fighting a boss, for example, you're not really moving around the map all that much. You're pretty stationary for the most part, maybe dodging out of the way here and there for attacks, but you're basically sticking on the boss the entire time. So as a result, you actually don't really even have the ability to go around and grab these Flames of Chayula. What would have been a lot more useful is when you do end up moving around, right? When you grab them, they had the old effect of lasting longer and also having double the effect. This probably would have been a lot more useful in those situations rather than this one right here, which allows you to select which one you get. On top of that, last season, we were also able to link into the Reach with gems like Prolonged Duration to make those remnants last even longer. But again, we cannot do that this league. So unfortunately, my overall feeling is that Lucid Dreaming also got nerfed. So where does that leave us? That leaves us at a point where, one, they nerfed the main reason why most people played Acolyte of Chayula with the Leech. They completely got rid of the second reason why people played Acolyte of Chayula, which is for the extra chaos damage for poison builds. And then they also nerfed the other ability for Waking Dream, which was granted not what people played it for, but still it was a nice little bonus as well to just, add on top of these other ones. I mean, it may be in like a very situational case it didn't get nerfed, but I'd say overall it definitely did get nerfed. So that leaves us at everything got nerfed, and then the things that they replaced it with were not very useful. So unfortunately, sports fans, I think that Acolyte of Chayula actually got nerfed as opposed to buffed in this rework. And hopefully GGG can understand that and fix that going forward in the future and rework this class, potentially even mid-league. I'd love to see that because people were very excited and they made a big whole thing about it at the live. They really hyped it up as like, here we're reworking this class that was very underplayed. Here you go, it's gonna be awesome. And it ended up being very, very disappointing. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you agree with me? Do you think that Chayula actually got nerfed as opposed to buffed? And as per usual, if you enjoy this type of content, the best way to let me know and support the channel, which is completely free, is by hitting the sub button. I also stream every single night on twitch.tv/MeSoShiru, so I'd love to see you guys there. But if not, hopefully I get to see y'all in the next video. All right, guys. Peace.